Over the past few months, this bed has been covered in a thick 6-inch layer of wood chips, and it's had tomatoes growing in it. The tomatoes are now out, and it's time to now focus on building soil. I'm going to be building soil in these beds over the winter months using cover crops. So part of what we need to do to get this bed to transition from the summer phase into the winter phase is deal with the wood chips on the soil surface. Why do we have to do that? Because I'm going to be planting sorghum Sudan grass into this bed. And I'm going to be using a Jang seeder to do that. Well, with this thick layer of wood chips on this bed, I can't run my Jang seeder through it. I can't direct seed directly into the wood chips. So I need to do something with the wood chips. I need to get them off the bed and get down to the bare soil underneath. Removing the wood chips is going to do a few things for me. One, it's going to give me material that I can compost either in place in the pathways, which is what I'm going to be doing, or I could compost it somewhere else. Two, it's going to expose the bed surface to the sky above. Why is that an advantage? Well, in the cooler winter months, I want the soil to stay as warm as possible. So exposing the soil's surface to the sun allows the soil to absorb more heat versus a cooler shaded soil, which would be underneath the wood chips themselves. So the very first step here is to remove the wood chips from the bed. Now I'm going to be very careful and surgical in doing this. This isn't just going to be a blind rake of the bed, just scraping down until I see bare soil. What I'm going to try and do is, precisely as possible, is remove the upper layer of wood chips and keep removing until I get down to that layer where the wood chips kind of look like soil. So anything that is truly a wood chip comes off. The stuff that kind of looks like soil or is closer to soil than wood chip, that's going to stay. That's important because over the past 6 months that these wood chips have been sitting on this bed, fungi have been breaking them down and they've been building soil in the process. Well, I don't want to waste that process. I don't want to waste that soil. And I don't want to spend time moving that soil somewhere else. I want to leave that soil in the bed. So I need to carefully rake back the top and leave it on the bed. And I'm excited to do this because I haven't actually dug down through these wood chips since I planted tomatoes in them back in April. So I'm excited to see what the soil looks like underneath. And you're going to get a first peek at it right alongside me. So here's the native surface of the wood chips. This has been untouched since these wood chips were first applied in April. If we start digging back, we probably have 2 inches before we start to get down to something that looks like this. In this area where the wood chips are starting to break down, you're starting to see soil mixed with wood chips. And you're starting to see a lot of biological activity in here. There's worms, there's roly-polies, all sorts of nice looking things. So digging down deeper, more worms, more soil. I actually don't think I'm gonna have to remove as much as I thought. A lot of this chunkier stuff, the larger size wood chips that are mixed into this black layer, I'm probably just gonna leave here. And I'm gonna try and plant directly into them. And we'll see how that goes. But I don't want to waste this valuable organic matter trying to strip it off if I don't have to. So let's start scraping with the rake and we'll see what we get. So given how nice the soil looks underneath these wood chips, this is where I'm going to have to be more surgeon than construction worker, gently scraping the wood chips off. Now I'm going to be moving them this way. This is the lower pathway. This is the area I want to fill. Again, you could take these wood chips and compost them somewhere else, use them somewhere else. I'm putting them in the pathway where they'll compost in place over the winter. I tried to rake off as much of the wood chips as I could. I left some on surface. There's some mixed into that soil wood chip barrier that's just kind of like this soup or cake of goodness. I'm leaving that on the soil surface because I know those wood chips will break down over time. Over the winter, we'll be getting a lot of water. And 2, I don't think they're gonna cause a problem for the Jang seeder. The whole point of removing the wood chips was to make operation of the seeder easier and possible. So we only need to remove enough wood chips to make that possible. I think I've done that. Anything else can stay there. You know, I got to admit, for as many gripes and shots that I've taken at wood chip gardening, I have to say, it builds a hell of a soil. This soil underneath these wood chips looks amazing. So if I've ever hurt your feelings, wood chips or wood chip gardeners, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to critique things as honestly as I can. I didn't mean it, but man, you and the wood chips are onto something, and I like it. Now that the wood chips have done such a beautiful job moving the soil in the right direction, we want to keep that momentum moving forward. So I'm going to be planting a cover crop into this bed. I'm going to be planting sorghum Sudan grass. Why that one? Well, it's a warm season cover crop. We still have a lot of warm season ahead of us here in Southern California. It's still late September, so I can get a lot of good crop out of the sorghum Sudan grass. It puts out a massive amount of biomass. It puts out a massive amount of root mass, which means a lot of physical organic matter below ground and above ground, and it's also going to put a lot of sugars into the ground to feed that microbiology underneath the surface. Some of you might say, and I've seen this in the comments a lot, well, why not a cover crop mix? I agree. I think diversity of cover crops is great. Here's why I don't want to do that. If I plant a diverse variety of cover crops, they may go to seed at different times. So say I planted radish and sorghum Sudan grass and clover. I don't want any of those to reseed into these beds. And if I get multiple crops seeded into a bed and one starts going to seed, essentially I have to terminate them all. So the first one to go to seed means everything else is going to get terminated. That's not the goal here. The goal here is just to produce a lot of biomass. So the sorghum Sudan grass, once it gets about 4 feet high, I'm gonna chop it down to about 18 inches, just using a scythe or a sickle, and then I'm gonna let it grow back up again and just repeat the process. So this is kind of a chop and drop cover crop system. The whole time the roots are providing goodness for the soil microbiology below in the form of root exudates. So one crop, you can control it very well because you can just watch that one crop. If you have multiple crops, that's great. The diversity of biomass above surface and the diversity of biological activity happening as a result of those diverse roots below surface is good, but it just requires a different management strategy, and that's not really what I'm going for right now. So that is why I'm planting a single species of cover crop. To put the sorghum Sudan grass into the bed, I'm using the Jang seeder with the F6 roller and 1110 sprockets. That's front to rear. That's going to give me approximately a 6-inch spacing in between each seed that is dropped. And I'm just going to put rows about every 6 inches. I'm going to try and put as much seed into this bed as I can. So let's get seeding. Seeding into the bed with the Jang was absolutely no problem. The little bit of sticks and wood chips still left on the soil surface didn't provide enough resistance or problems to slow the Jang down at all. So if there is some biomass, some wood chips, some sticks left on the surface after you do this, I wouldn't worry about it. The Jang should go through it easily. And this is the standard shoe, not the double disc opening shoe. There we go. I was able to fit 6 rows into the 60-inch bed. The next step, I'm just going to use the back of a normal leaf rake to knock down the ridges made by the Jang wheels. I find that this helps to have a smooth soil surface versus the little troughs left by the wheels. Dude, you're walking on the beds, man. You're gonna compact the soil. Dude, bro, I really don't think that my weight, these few trips up and down the bed, are going to affect soil compaction that much. So I don't mind walking on the bed every now and then. For the next step, I'm actually going to put a thin layer of straw on top of the soil surface. I want to help keep moisture in because we still have some really hot days ahead. I also want to protect this raw soil surface and not give it the shock of a lifetime when that midday sun hits it. So just a thin layer of straw to help insulate the soil surface. And then on top of that, I'll pull out a roll of shade cloth to keep the birds from getting at the seeds because that is not what I want. There you have it. The process is finally done. Cover crop seed is in, and the transition from summer to winter continues. The whole idea here, the base principles behind this were in the summer when water is scarce in an arid climate like this, you use the wood chips to passively build soil. If they break down and build soil during that passive process, great. but you're not trying to grow a cover crop using external water. And then in the winter, when water becomes more abundant via the sky, that's when it's going to rain here, we peel the wood chips back and we use cover crops to start building soil, not just from above, but also from below, taking advantage of their roots and the exudates that those roots put out. If you want to hear more about this whole process, my whole plan of action for a full calendar year, go back and check out that presentation that I did on wood chip gardening in arid climates, which I've linked to below. That discusses all the how, the why, the theory behind what I'm doing. So check that out. I think you'll get a lot out of it. Thanks for watching this video. Until next time, be nice, be thankful, and do the work. All right, the bed is now cleared off and the soil underneath is looking absolutely Beyonce. And if you don't know what that means, it just means the soil looks fine. And I don't mean Beyonce after a late night concert fine. I mean Beyonce getting ready for a photo shoot fine. And the soil looks amazing